agree with Alan Greenspan. We ought to just eliminate the debt ceiling. Oh, absolutely. We do.
The ability of almost every working American to access more credit than they should have been able to masked the underlying fact that lower and middle class incomes were not rising.
That's not a tenable strategy. Isn't now the time to eliminate it? Oh, we've been a long time ago to eliminate it.
Let's put aside terrorism. Let's talk only about our own homegrown animals that are patrolling America right now. So it goes down to the simplest thing. Be prepared, be vigilant.
The day is moments from breaking. It's moments from breaking, but man, you know what they say, right? It's darkest before the dawn, and it is a dark moment right now. I'm back on a country road, headed towards a turkey hunting spot. We were partying like madmen just, 12 hours ago, less. The book came out yesterday. Unity Community. It's on the shelves. It's available at Amazon.com. It's out, and it's about. And you're a fool not to get it. You're a fool not to get it. That's all I can say. Not only that, we're running out of time. We're running out of time, and if you're not going to take up the mantle, if you're not going to start digging into your neighborhood and finding out who lives around you, meeting with these people, talking to these people, developing relationships in your community, and coming to the realization and helping others come to the realization that we all need each other. We all need each other from a mental, from a physical, from a spiritual standpoint. We all need each other. And this isolation is tearing the world apart. This isolation and also this team dichotomy in the nation is going to kill lots of people. In my lifetime, in your lifetime. And that's what's on my mind on this dark road. This dark back road. It's metaphorical in a way. Because here I am, right? On this dark road, there's lots of signs. It's indicative of life. A long, dark road with many signs and many arrows telling you which way to go, which way you should go. Should you marry her? Shouldn't you marry her? Should you have kids? Should you not? What should you do? Should you take the job? Should you quit your job? And you know that it's just you in the dark at the end of the day. And here I am puttering along down this dark road, the only light on this dark road. Hopefully I can provide you a bit of light on your dark road, because I know life is not easy. It's not an easy thing, and what I'm asking of you is to make it even more complicated. Yep, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking that you make life even more complicated. I'm asking that you devote more of your time. And if for those of you who are new to this show don't know what I'm talking about the commitment to your neighborhood, to the commitment to your community. Because now is the time when we start coming together as a nation. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows we need to be better neighbors. Everybody knows we're too isolated. Anybody who's analyzing this game of life understands why we are where we are, right? They understand why we have white racists in Charlottesville with tiki torches. They understand why we have black-clad creatures who are running around Berkeley, trying to stab people and hurt people and deem people Nazis who disagree with them. We know why we have a Black Lives Matter movement. We know why we have a BAM movement. We know why we have these domestic terrorist groups, and I think that's exactly what they are. In fact, they remind me of the Foot Soldiers in a way. They remind me of the Foot Clan from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you don't remember, go watch the original. Go watch the original and take a look at the Foot Clan and see what sort of a makeup they were. Right, these disenfranchised youth, sometimes street kids, given a home, given a family, given a place to be, and then they become the foot. You talk about the home, you talk about the family. What happens within a community? How can a community be effective? In my new book, I tell you all about it. I tell you all about it from actual experience, and I tell you a little bit about it through theory. I can tell you right now, if you're interested in getting up on the starting line and beginning this process of bringing the nation back together, one of the first things you can do in your community is start talking about creating a community garden. And I know what that sounds like. I know it sounds frivolous and silly. Like, what? What are you talking about? We're on the verge of nuclear war with another nation. You guys worried about starting a little garden. It's the most apolitical step you can take. It's the most important step you can take. It's the most easily accepted step that you can take. You're going to bring the idea to community members, and they're going to love it. They're going to say, oh yeah, community garden, what a great idea. Love for my kids to be able to go up to a community garden and see how that sort of thing works. Beautiful. And from there, you're going to start meeting people. From there, you're going to start working side by side with people in this community garden. And before long, you're going to be reminded, and they're going to be reminded, and everyone's going to be reminded that people are just people. But for a small fringe of maniac losers who have found no meaning in life and decided to cleave to a group that speaks to a tiny little part of what they are. Right? Because even the most dedicated, even the most proud Antifa member, they're only speaking to a small piece of what they are. They're speaking to a very small piece of what they are, and at the end of the day, they're just lacking. Same on the other side. Rather than letting these people, these marginalized people, these fringe people fall into the clutches of these groups, which are pretty much the same as ISIS in the way that they recruit, we need to give them a home within our communities and within our neighborhoods. We need to tell them it's okay to go talk to a neighbor. It's okay to talk to people. You know people. I have an issue. Mom and dad's at work. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and paraphrase the book. What I'm going to tell you is the sun's coming up. I need to get my hunting blind put up, but I'm still about 10, 15 minutes out from the spot. While I talk to you about saving the world, at the same time, I'm also concerned about this shot I hope to get off on a turkey this morning. It's the shot that I hope to get off with a broad head and a recurved bow and doing one of the most challenging things there is. And I'm going to come out and be completely honest with you guys. I'm a terrible hunter. Just horrible. Just terrible. It's just something that is very hard, and it's very hard for a guy like me to do. One of the big reasons it's very hard for a guy like me is I like to move. I have to move. I have to do and work and say, and hunting is not about that. It's about stalking quietly. Well, see, not even that, because I do enjoy stalking quietly. It's something I do with a fly rod in hand. It's something I do with a spinning rod in hand. When I go fishing, I love it. I love to stalk a fish from afar and creep up on him and catch him. But when you're hunting skittish birds with magnificent vision like a turkey, there's no getting around the fact, and you want to try to do it with a bow, there's no getting around the fact that you're going to have to sit still for some time. You're going to have to sit still for some time, and that is where I have struggled most in my hunting endeavor, is this idea that I should sit, this idea that I should put all my chips into this one spot for the day. I'm a very cautious investor, man. I like diversity. So for me to push all my chips into one spot, to put a hunting blind up first thing in the morning and decide that I'm gonna wait it out here, it's just tough for me. It's tough for me, but the experience is great. I know that's a tough sell to non-hunters and to non-outdoorsmen, but the experience in and of itself is so wonderful. Just to get out here and to sit in the blind and to watch the world come to life under the sun and to watch the birds come out and the other animals come out, and you see all kinds of different things. It's just a really great time. There's no getting around it. There is no getting around it. It is a great time. But I wanted to talk to you today. I wanted to thank all the people who bought the book yesterday. You are the army. You are you are capable of spreading this pandemic. I've been referring to it as a pandemic just loosely and having a good time with it, but I kind of like the analogy. Because that's where I want it to go. I want it to spread. I want it to get crazy. I want it to get insane. I want people to go crazy for it. I want people to say, here's a mission. Finally, we have a mission. This is something that we can do, something we can pull off here. We can do this. We can make a difference in this nation, because I think a lot of people are looking for answers. They're looking for answers, and they're looking for answers that make a big difference real fast, and that's why they like gathering in groups and rioting, right? I can get in front of a camera, in front of a community, and I can scream to the top of my lungs exactly what I want out of this life, and either I'll get it or I'll break something. Either I'll get it or I'll be even more mean. What else? What else is the trees? I love the way the trees look at night. They come black. They're beautiful on fire. Right? This time of year, the trees are incredible looking, but at night they become black. They become black against our light, against the slow uptick of the sun and our fake light from the headlights of the car. They look cool to me. They always reminded me of monsters coming up out of the ground. When I was little, I'd be sitting in the back of the car driving home from something. Sitting in the back seat. I always sat in the back seat alone because my father, he didn't come with us to like holiday events, so I'd be in the back seat by myself, sister up front, and I'd be watching the big monster trees come up from the ground. The terror of being a child is unfathomable. This time of year, you go back to it a lot, You go back to the absolute terror of being a child. You say to yourself, God almighty, what it was like, what Halloween was like, what scary movies did to you, what you were terrified of everything. Mortified. And I see it in my own children. And part of you, when you have kids, you want to say, I don't know, I shouldn't do this. They shouldn't see these scary things. We shouldn't decorate the house in such scary... And then you realize, then you remember what the world has waiting for them. And you say, you know what, better they be terrified around with their parents around so we can explain it than their first real experience with terror be around a bunch of kids who don't care about them anyway. So we're approaching. What to talk about today? I had a great time with Matt Cochran from the Tactical Dads podcast. Check it out. It's a great show. Great guy. He tweeted out the book, or I think he put it on Facebook actually yesterday. That was wonderful. Thank you, Matt, for that. Great podcast. I'm not sure when it'll be out exactly, but I'll keep an eye out for the link. I'll post it up at IamLibertyShow.com. The Tactical Dads podcast is also a great Facebook group. And I think you can go to tacticaldads.com. I'm pretty sure that's the URL. We were talking about regional disaster. We were talking about prepping. We're talking about this crazy idea that what is a prepper? What really is a prepper? There's the idea of what a prepper is, this weird idea that a prepper is some guy like a Tony Stark type with all this land and this giant underground bunker and all this gear. And then there's the actual preppers, the people that I talk to every week, the people at the live show, the people at prepperbroadcasting.com who show up every week, say hello, how you doing, good to talk to you, James. The people who are working hard just to make ends meet. These are what preppers are. They're just people who look at the world and they say, man, this don't look good. This don't look too good here. What are we doing here? We need to get some insurance, and not by way of money that we pay people to pay us back, a quarter of it. That's what it is. Prepping is little more than an investment. But it's an investment in things that are less than common, that's all. So I'm going to hop in here and get this blind set up, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Hopefully after the hunt I'll have good news, but we'll see how that goes. That's the thing about hunting. But either way, I've got a long ride home, and I want to talk to you about some things. So we'll be back after this. And in that short amount of time, you find balance. Whoa. Whoa, do you understand balance when you leave those woods? Today was an incredible day. It was an incredible day in the woods. Did I come away with a turkey today? No. Did I even take a shot at a turkey today? No. So how could it be an incredible day? You have to... I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start, Sneaking through the woods, setting up the blind, putting out the decoy. Every little call and every little noise, you start to get excited. You start to get ramped up, thinking that soon you're going to look up and those dark bodies and those long necks are going to be walking over towards your decoy. There's excitement in that. There's some serious excitement in that. And then, it's also the joy of just being out. When I got to my spot, there was a fog coming off the fields. Right? There was this mist coming off the fields. It was about 10 feet high in the air. And it was slunking through the fields like a ghost. It was so cool. And when I first walked into the field that I was setting my blind up in, I seen through the mist, just through the mist, 2 bucks standing there looking at me through the mist. They were looking at me like I was a buck and they were a human. They were like, what is this thing? And they took off once they realized I was human. And in that moment, that moment right there is worth it all. When you get to see the world coming to life like that, it's incredible. Oh, I forgot to take a picture of the beaver dam. I wanted to take a picture of the beaver dam I found for my son. Oh well. I got a warm welcome from the beaver. I don't know if you've ever been welcomed by a beaver before. What they do is they come up to the top of the water and they slap their big tails down. And it's terrifying. It's one of the most terrifying things that you can hear when you're walking through a place at 5 a.m. and it's pitch dark and you hear whoosh. And when you don't know what it is, the first time I ever saw one, I was fishing, so I had no idea what it was. Thought somebody threw a giant boulder at me and missed. When you don't know what it is, it's even more terrifying. But once you know what it is, then you're like, oh God, it still takes you off guard. So I stayed in the blind about 4 hours. Maybe about 5 hours. No, I stayed in about 4 hours. I sat in the blind for about 4 hours. Let the morning come to fruition. It started to get warm. And there was another field that I wanted to investigate. So I abandoned the blind for a little while. This is just how I do things. I can't help it. What I like most is playing in the woods. That's it. That's what I've come to realize about myself. Fishing, I love it. Hunting, I love getting out and trying, and scouting, I love it all. But at the core of what I really love is the exploration in the woods. That's what it is. I love when I'm on a hill and I see the crest and I'm like, what's over the hill? Oh man, what could be over that? It's so primal, it's so primitive. It goes back, it goes back, millennia, that feeling that you feel. What's around this corner? How far does this field go? I have to go see the end of this field. So I went into to explore these two different fields that I wanted to check out. Not really so much for turkey, a little more for deer. Because firearm season just a couple weeks away. And I'll be doing that thing. I found a great spot too, by the way. I don't know if we'll go into that or not, but I want to tell you another story that's even more exciting. So I came onto this, I want to call it a highland, and comparatively it was a highland because I was at a wildlife management area that is based around a lake. So it was, not a crazy uphill or anything like that, but it was a highland looking sort of setting, right? It was a highland environment. There were trees, some bushes, sparsely, grasses that were pretty low, kept pretty low, not cut, but ground covered style grasses. And I'm walking through this area, man, and I see the field. The field was downhill. The actual green field was downhill. Looked great, nice, wide, expansive, gave way to another. It was in a valley essentially, so it gave way to another hill. Good wooded area, not a lot of pine, so I'm not sure that we would see turkeys out in that field. It was also divided from where I know the turkey habitat is by water, so I'm not 100% sure it'd be a good spot for them. But I could be wrong. But I'm walking through this highland, quote unquote, and it was about 11 o'clock at the time. And I'm like, wow, this is nice. A lot of vantage points, a lot of brush, a lot of places to, take cover, a lot of places to set a blind up. And I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and I said, the forager, the survivalist in me starts saying, it's 11 o'clock. All my food's back in the blind. Like, there's got to be something to eat around here. Of course, nothing substantial. I'm not looking for anything, but something just to hold me off. And I started looking around. Little berries, little red berries growing on a bush. I had no idea what they were, clustered up. I crushed them, smelled them, tasted them. They were horrendous. Blueberries growing on a fern, or was it a fir? A fir, rather, I'm sorry. Nothing I'm going to mess with. It looked like all the pine cones had dropped their seeds. And I said to myself, man, this is tough. I'd really like a little something, a little berry, a little, I don't know, I was looking for anything. And I rounded a corner, and it was like framed, this beautiful tree with these round fruits on it. And I was like, what is this in October? Anybody want to take a guess what it was? Take a guess what it was. Say it out loud in your car. Say it to your wife. Say it to your kids. I thought it was plums. I looked at them, they were rather small. I said, these are probably plums. Some kind of holdover plum, some kind of late season plum, or a peach maybe, a late peach. Wild. I got a little closer and I saw the telltale top of the fruit. It was a persimmon. I said, oh, here we go. We got some wild persimmon here. Now, they could have been planted by land management. That's possible. Good food for deer in the fall. Good food for me. So I recorded a whole video on my YouTube channel of the persimmon and of the persimmon tree, and it'll be under the heading of all my wild edible videos, which I think there are about 4 or 5 now. This is that part of the YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, and there's a lot of you who don't know because I have nobody on my YouTube channel. I don't put a lot of effort to it. I don't really promote it a lot. All my episodes that are ever recorded go directly to YouTube. And then every once in a while I record a video and put it up there as well. Very sparse, and it shows. I think I have like 10, 12 subscribers or something like that. It's just, you want me to tell you the secret about YouTube? They take over 50% of your earnings, and I'm just not into that. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to put all my time into this thing. If there's a time to do a video, I'll do a video if it makes sense. And it made sense because I wanted people to see it. I wanted people to see the persimmon up close. I wanted them to know about the fact that if you eat the persimmon when it's underripe, it is one of the worst things in the whole world. And I only know this because we used to eat persimmon growing up. And I remember when my mom would buy them and they would be underripe and we would be like, whoa, they just dry your mouth up. They just completely dry your mouth up. It's horrible. And one of the worst things I can think about is being in a survival situation where you're like, haven't had a drink in 2 days and things are getting real bad. You haven't eaten and you come across a persimmon tree and you start chomping them down and they hit you with that raw bitterness, that tannins that just close up everything in your mouth. It's an ugly thing to think about. But I looked for the nice soft ones, right? I ate around the seeds. There are a lot of seeds in these little persimmons. And I got a little snack in the middle of the day. Then I went and sat on a little ridge and looked out onto one of these fields for a little while. I found an antler there. Take that home to my boy. He'll love it. And then on my way out of there, I said, all right, where am I going to set up? Where am I going to set up at? And I found this hill, maybe about a 10-foot hill, super steep hill. I climbed up that hill, and there's a little embankment in there. I could probably lean my rifle right on the embankment and hide behind the hill, and it gave me a great vantage point of several persimmon trees and various areas where it looked like deer maybe were bedding even. So very happy with that. Very happy with that. But that's exploration. That's what I love. I saw some squirrels. I didn't have arrows out. I had the bow over my shoulder, so I wasn't really prepared to take a shot or anything like that. And I just, enjoyed the day out. I just really enjoyed the day out. There's a chapter in my book all about the outdoors, and in the book, when I was proofing it, when I was editing, I was looking at that chapter about the outdoors, and I was, is this really relevant? This is something that I really like, but is this really relevant to the book? And there were a couple times when I thought about taking it out. I really did. I was like, no, I think I'm going to take this thing out. This really doesn't have much to do with what I'm trying to get at here, I don't think. And what I found was that it really does. It really does, because there's a level of balance in the outdoors, and whether people read it and start going out into the outdoors or not is irrelevant, but they have to know that in the battle against the centralized powers, in the battle against the contaminated world, in the battle against isolation, and in the battle against the dependence that has gripped the nation, right? Whether it's dependence on a drug, dependence on money from the government, dependence on a device. In the battle against these new norms, is what I call them in the book. They're the new norms in society. Centralization, contamination, isolation, and dependence. And in the battle against these, the outdoors tackles nearly everything. The outdoors is such a counterbalance to those, it's unbelievable. Because when you're out in that pristine world, never more do you think of the importance of assuring that your world is not contaminated. I mean, you just can't help but look at an environment like that and say, oh, we gotta pump the brakes here. We're gonna lose this. When you talk about centralization of power, centralization of the food industry, centralization of various industries and monopolies in the nation, namely these giant corporations that are slowly taking a hold of our lives, i.e. Google, Facebook, Twitter. You look at these things and you say to yourself, this is the great counterbalance. This is the great counterbalance. The outdoors, me versus the wild. And so on and so forth, right? Isolation, dependence. I don't need to go over it. I know you guys are probably getting a little tired of hearing about the book because I've been on an onslaught of book promotion for the last couple weeks. And to be honest with you, the greatest feeling in the world is publishing a book, and the greatest feeling in the world is getting that book off of your plate. But I'm going to promote this book much longer than I've ever promoted any book, because this isn't a storybook and this isn't a training manual. This is a movement, and it is the starting line for breaking up Antifa, destroying these crazy right and left-wing fringe groups that are trying to overtake the great people of this nation. And we're going to do it. We are going to do it, mark my words. Good people are going to read this book, and good people are going to make changes all over this nation. But that was my day, hunting the turkeys. I said the sum total of my efforts going after turkeys in particular brought me one tiny, old, crinkled turkey tail feather. That was the culmination of my efforts today in hunting turkeys. That was it. That was it. And if you can't understand how that can be a great day, I think you just need to get out more. You need to get out in the woods more. Because I've come to the conclusion in life that it's just good to get out. It's exactly what my father's been telling me my whole life, ever since I can remember. As far back as I can remember fishing with Dad, whether we caught fish like never before or whether we caught nothing, which rarely did we catch nothing. But we'd always be walking back from some path, from some body of water, and he would say, man, it's just good to get out. It's just good to get out. Even though we got one fish, even if we got 20 fish, it's just good to get out. And that's the reality of this thing. That's the reality of this thing. You know, for those of you who are on the fence about making the jump into the outdoors, first of all, if you're an aspiring survivalist, prepper, whatever you want to call, self-reliant individual, homesteader, whatever, the best place to start is in the woods. You need to start learning about trees. You need to start learning about plants. You need to start learning about animals and animal habitats and dangerous animals. All of that stuff you get confronted with. Oh, you know what else? I started my 15-day fire challenge today. Yeah, talk about taking it down to the wire, I know. Been a little busy. But today, I pulled some compressed biomass that I carry in all my bags because of one of the best tinders you can have, in my opinion. They burn for about 16 minutes, 15 minutes. I took the fire laces on my boots. So, you know, you hear all the time people say, unlace your boots and lace them with paracord. I take it one step further, and I've attached a piece of ferro to the laces right down there where you first start lacing the boot. And that little piece of ferro is always there. I have one on each boot, and today I unlaced one of my boots before I headed out. I used some pine. I used some of the inner bark from, when a pine tree is dying, that inner bark that starts to fray off. Sometimes deer scratch it off with their antlers. It looks almost papery. Not the hard, papery outer bark, but this stuff peels off very thin. So I took some of that, tore it up with a little bit of actual pine bark, and shredded all that up, sat it on top of my biomass, took my knife out, started sparking the fire lace, and got myself a little fire going. You know, I basically killed it after I lit the biomass, because once you get that thing lit, you've got 15 minutes of flame. And if you can't get a fire started in 15 minutes, you got to work on your skills, my man. I don't know what else to tell you. You're not doing it right. But, yeah, that's my first day. I'm going to try to get out and do a fire every day from here on out for the rest of the year. Different methods, different starters, all that stuff. Why? Because it's fun. This all came from a situation in the same hunting spot where I went out with a smaller, thinner ferro rod and started or attempted to start a fire with my son and failed. It was a little wet that day. My tinder must not have been the right thing. I used a lot of pine needle, which usually does great. I couldn't get a fire started. And I said to myself, this is unacceptable. This is highly unacceptable. I had no problem generating sparks, none of that, no issues. But I couldn't get anything going. You know, I didn't put a ton of effort into it, but still, it was just the idea. It was just the idea. If this were a situation where we needed a fire, I would have failed here. So the only way to keep from failing is to give it a whirl. That's where the idea came. So if you're out there and you want to join us, this is not a rigid contest or challenge or anything like that. It's just use the rest of the month to start a fire each day, or start 5 fires, or start 10 fires over the rest of the month. But do it in a way that you don't usually do it. Don't go out there with a lighter. Don't go out there with a match. Use some things that maybe you have around the house you haven't used. Use a 9-volt battery and some Brillo pad, whatever, something. Do something different, something exciting, something new. Because even when you do something once, you're exponentially better than if you've done it 0 times. I know that sounds silly and no duh, but it's the reality of it. So the clouds have come back. The clouds were here this morning. They parted for me so I could have a great sunny day, and I appreciate that. But now they're back. And I'm headed home to the family, to be the family man. I guess I'll have to cook some dinner when I get home. I really don't know what else to talk about, guys. That's what's going on in my life. The book is out. What I could use, webmasters out there, if you want to give me a hand, I need websites that need content. Do you want me to write for your website? Do you want me to write an article for your website particular to really any topic? But I've got clients who are looking to get their name out, and they're looking to get their name out in authority prepper and survivalist websites and outdoors websites. And they're looking for an avenue. They're looking for an avenue, and I need some avenues, really. So if you've got a website, you're interested in having some content written up, it comes to you completely free. You don't have to even pay me for it. And it'll be a great article because that's what I do for a living. And I can promise you, we'll both be very satisfied by the end of our journey. But it looks like that's all I've got for today, folks. I'm going to talk to you later. I'll see you live Wednesday night at prepperbroadcasting.com. Do me a favor. Come to the live show. Please come to the live show. You have no idea, if you're just listening to these shows through Stitch or whatever, and you're not coming to prepperbroadcasting.com and joining the live chat and calling into the show, you're missing out on a lot of fun. Because the people who listen to my show are some of the greatest people out there. That's you included. But they come together at prepperbroadcasting.com and they shoot the shit and they have a good time. And it's fun. It's a whole another layer to this show that you miss out on if you're only listening to these episodes. I'm not selling you anything over there. I'm not doing anything different than I do here. But I'd like to see you over there. I'd like to get to know more of you. Because like I said, you guys, you're on the front lines here. You're the ones who are going to spread this idea of community like wildfire. And one day I hope it's so big and it's so massive and it's so incredible that I can just do a tour just to thank people and meet people. But until that day, you're just going to get me on the airwaves and maybe on the YouTube videos, all right? Thanks so much. Keep me in mind for all your writing needs. It's James Walton with the I Am Liberty Show.